The practice matches have come and gone, and it is time to overreact and completely change our fantasy squads. We're going to break down the top things that we took away from every single match. Let's go!
Hodges done it from nowhere. Busted the goal from inside the field. Sheed from the boundary. Dusty. Oh, yes! You're a magician. Petrarca. The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, and you can find us there on Twitter as well at Ball Boys AFL, joined by the workhorse of the podcast, the man who just does not stop, having a pre-season lighting up the track, Luke Roderson. Mate, how are you?
Very good, mate. Footy is getting so close we can almost taste it now. Every weekend we just get a little bit more of a fix. And this weekend is effectively the real stuff in terms of fantasy scoring.
Yeah, well, the practice matches are over. For us fantasy coaches, we still get a few more tryouts for our squads. But as far as the AFL clubs are aware, this is where the practice stuff is done, and it's on to the real deal. And they will be playing for premiership points this weekend on opening round. And we're going to have 10 teams to watch this weekend, but no more of the 18 teams to watch that we did just gone.
Well, we've said it before. This not this week, but next week is going to be the craziest week in fantasy all year, because we're going to have all these well-intentioned plans, and then we're going to see round zero scores that make us question premiums that we have, make us think about players that we don't have that we might want to put in, and it's going to be a fun couple of weeks.
Yeah, 100%. It's the fantasy. We're riding a big fantasy high right now, and we're going to talk about each and every game, each and every team that we saw on the weekend. We're going to do the same thing we did last week with the match simulations for the community series review, and we're going to go through the top 3 points from each game. I will say that on some of the games, there were some games where we had round zero teams versus non-round zero teams. In those games, we're probably going to focus more on the non-round zero teams, because we're not going to be able to watch them this round as well. So if we don't talk about Collingwood, it's because one, there's not very fantasy relevant players, but it's because we also get to watch them this weekend. So going all the way back.
We're also, just before you do, we're running the same format in terms of the top 3 kind of takeaways from each game. If you do want our full and detailed thoughts on every single one of the games. There was some detail there. Head on over to patreon.com/ballboys to check out. Every member of the Patreon is getting a write-up for every single game with our detailed thoughts.
Yeah,
so
we left no stone unturned in those write-ups, Luke. We were very busy, very busy. All right, Carlton versus Geelong. Now, you demanded that I put this player in there because I think this is a bit of a Luke's boy situation coming along. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, oh, Lordy B, I'm converted. You preacher to the choir. This young fella, obviously we saw the small patch of games at the end of last year where he went into a decent midfield role and scored pretty well before getting injured. I wanted to see whether this would kind of eventuate over the course of this preseason, and it seems to have. Last week we saw it, but we needed to wait for Cripps to come back. This week, just gone, we saw it again, even with Cripps back into the side. So we kind of had Cripps in there, we had Walsh in there, and we had Lord in there doing his thing. There's a few guys kind of around that price or just below his price that we might be interested in the position, but the role looks good for old Lordy B.
The role does look good. 114 points just gone. And the only 2 other examples we really have are in round 21 and 22. He had 71 and 82% CBAs, played 89 and 85% TOG, and scored 87 and 112. The very next week, in round 23, however, he does go down with the injury at 52% TOG. So, look, the points per minute in that role is good for him. Can't deny it.
What'd you call me?
What did I say?
Can't.
Jeez, just settle down.
Settle
down, mate. Settle down. The question I have is, how much of this can we believe is going to happen? Like 71 and 82% CBAs is a lot.
Yeah.
He had 50% on the weekend. Now, we've got to take that scoring with a pinch of salt, as we do with most preseason games.
What do you mean? That's all I was looking at, bro.
That's all you're looking at?
Scores. What's a roll?
Chera's injury maybe helps.
That's the thing that I'm working on. So let's go through that midfield mix. So we know Cripps, we know Walsh.
Yep.
Okay.
Hewitt.
Chera's out. Hewitt. Lordy B.
Lordy B could be number 4. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him.
It's not a bad role there.
Does he go straight back out when Chera comes right back in?
There's the potential. The thing, if this was just a preseason thing, I would have more question marks than what I do, given that we saw at the end of last year it was something that they seemed to be running with before the injury got in there. I like the way he plays too. Look, I mean, cards on the table. He's not at the Oxlongs, but he is in the showers. So it's a good place to be at the Oxlongs.
I think it's a nice little unique pick, and I think at the very least, someone you could probably bump up on your draft board, and definitely keep an eye on him, because maybe one more injury or something like that at Carlton, which we know they've had their fair share of over the years, and he might shoot into relevance. The next thing we're looking at in this one here, and it was the first game of the practice matches, and I think this was the big reaction. Tanner Bruin. My gut instinct when I watched this player and this team play is I can't fucking trust them. And I don't know if that's me being too cautious or maybe letting, I don't know, emotions get in the way of something, but I have to look at this with a shade of skepticism and say, I don't believe it. But what do you think?
Well, not to be trusted for multiple reasons. Tanner, I didn't think he looked any tanner than he has in previous seasons. I thought he still looked pasty and white.
That was a reach even for you, mate.
That was quite good. Yeah, I've been working on that for a couple of minutes.
Nice.
So it affirms not to be trusted. You can't tell me you're tanner and not be tanner. Come on, mate. Grow up.
You've been at the beach or not?
Grow up. This will be stubborn for you and I. I could see a world where this is the boner.
The boner of 2026.
Yes, yeah, where we go like, no, couldn't be, can't trust him, and then the old Tanner is waxing across half back. I like you, am still a little bit skeptical. The Chris Scott factor is killer here, and also the fact that we've only seen it in the one game. Now, all things considered, we will get a sneaky peeky here.
He will, yeah. We'll get another sneaky peek in round 0. He wasn't there last week because he was laid out with the illness, so it would have been really nice to have 2 data points. Yeah. The other thing is, and I don't know, this is maybe just a bit of bias confirmation, but confirmation bias, other way. He had 2 different roles. So in the first half, he was that waxy boy off half back.
Yeah.
But in the second half, he went to the CBAs. Had the most CBAs in the third quarter and still managed 5 CBAs in the last quarter.
Now, you could look at that if you wanted to go the other way. You could go, wow, he's got so many roles.
So many roles. But
how fruitful is this?
To me, that smells of a player that they don't really know how he fits into the side, and they're trying to suss it out in the preseason game, because they've got a lot of players in that are, like, they were in the grand final last year. This is Geelong. This is not like, I don't know, I'm going to make a few fans unhappy by saying any other team, but this is a team that knows what they're doing, and they're not just going to give away spots for nothing. And they've got a lot of players in there that are, like, they're set. Like, they've got a lot of veterans. They've got a lot of guys that know what they're doing, and they don't need to roll out and prove anything in the practice matches. So, I don't know. Colour me skeptical in this one. He's an option. Obviously, it depends on the round 0 score.
That's the thing. Is
what's he have to score?
I mean, I know that it's somewhat of a cop-out, but, like, I'm not going to go and make a huge proclamation when I literally get a sneaky peeky, and everyone gets it as well.
If I say it's a trap, you can't do it, and then he comes out and scores a 140, well, I'm falling for the trap.
Trap me. If he comes out and is genuinely in the halfback role, and the halfback role the whole time, and he scores 90 plus, then I'm probably starting to think that we'll get on board.
Yeah. However, my prediction right now is that round 0, he'll give us a 70, and I don't think that'll be enough for me. But he could make me eat my words. The last one we're going to read here is a little one out of the blue. But Wade
out of the blue,
Dirksen, nice. I totally meant that. Wade Dirksen,
Dirk.
He had the commentators and had a lot of fantasy players very excited up, especially after his first quarter.
Oh, mate, and we've known Dirky Dirk since way back. It's just not
a staple of the club.
Yeah, he has. He's always been at the showers, the Oxlongs. No, never heard about him until about 5 minutes ago.
83 points on the night. I think he had 40 odd in the first quarter.
The Dirk was good. It was inflated by a first quarter score. And I think the thing that I wrote in my review there as well was just the question marks about what that role looks like when Wiedering comes back.
Yeah.
And I think Hayes as well.
Yep.
Potentially. So, Yeah, again, one that we'll see in opening round. But we also have a fair few options in that kind of bracket as well.
This strikes me as the rookie version of Sam Taylor. This is like he had a great score. The role was still that of a key defender.
Yeah,
and
he played that role well. To be fair,
he played it very well. I mean, he could have earned himself a spot at the side. Absolutely, he more than likely is there next week. But I'm going to still, probably unless he gives me a 138, which Sam Taylor did last year, I probably won't be going there.
Let's move to the next game. Now, I'm a connoisseur of moist, but it
was next level.
The moist meter was going off the charts.
The moist meter floated away.
It was ding, ding, dinging on the red, the old moist meter.
That
Because
second half was unbelievable.
Sydney GWS, it was a BYO goggles type affair for the Swans and the Giants. But there was still a few things that I saw in there that I liked. Now, one thing I didn't like at the time, but the reporting after the fact was good, was the fact that Errol spent, after the kind of early in the second quarter, spent the rest of the game on the bench with an ankle injury cited there. But basically, apparently just the utmost of precaution, and he will be good for next week or this week.
Yes. Now, I actually still need to go back and... was it an obvious ankle, or was it sort of like you look back and somewhere he hurt his ankle at some point?
I didn't even see it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
okay.
I moved my mic down.
Because I remember there was, I want to say it was 2 or 3 years ago that Zach Butters had an ankle injury in a practice match, and everyone freaked out, and they were saying, it's a cautious, and he ended up being fine. It ended up being totally fine, and I think I did start him that year anyway. I think this could be something similar, but I do want to look and see if I can find the injury to make sure it is nothing horrendous.
Diagnose him.
I've got to make sure I do that. But I think by all reports, and the fact, obviously, we're going to be able to watch him this week.
Yeah.
That is the other thing. It shouldn't affect us in terms of picking him.
More interesting for me was the GWS midfield mix here, given that they're somewhat decimated. Harry Ralston, I was really impressed by Harry Ralston. Now, like I said, moist meter off the charts, hard to get a read on some of these things. But when it was a little less...
Harry Ralston or Harry Rosen?
I just prefer to be nice to him.
It was probably Rosen in this one.
You're going to I thought you were going to roast him.
No, Rowan, you both.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
No,
keep
that
going.
was probably not good. I liked what I saw from him, and when it was a little less moist in the first quarter, I saw him presenting for a few of those little 45, give me a +6 type options, which I like the look of. I think dry conditions, there were a couple that he led up to that I think he will actually get kicked. Fourth, I reckon, is kind of where he sits in the pecking order, because I want to talk about... in the CBAs. Yeah, and the reason that I said that is because I want to talk about the guy who was first in the GWS CBAs.
Green, and not Tom.
Correct, Toby. And
yes.
I don't think this is getting enough attention, and I think it's a very specific... If you're maybe not as big on Christian Petrarca, I think there's an argument that you can save yourself 100K. If you want that role in your side field, I think there's an argument that you could save 100K and maybe get a little bit of Toby.
Go Toby instead of Clayton. Look, 3 or 4 years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago, if you told me that Toby Green was getting any sort of midfield time, I'd be all over it. Like, that time, he was one of the best, premium scorers. Just absolute thirst. Scored in multiple different ways. Fantasy beast when he got the role. 5 or so years later on, 32 years old, I'm less convinced, but it's not nothing. And this isn't they talked about this beforehand as well. This isn't just something that's come out of the blue. I think he's literally been named up as someone who can spend more time in there.
It's come a point here in GWS's preseason where they've gone, hey, we've got no one. We're turning the keys over to you, Skipper. Do something for us here. Points
per minute were there. 98 points and 69% CBA time on ground.
The game was
that's big.
The game was a scrap, and in some ways that kind of it suits him because he is just kind of like a bulldozer. But I like the look of this, and this wouldn't surprise me if over the first... I know Petrarca has a great run in terms of the matchups, but you're saving 100K here, and if you're not big on Petrarca, maybe there's an option here. He has the buy that's a little more convenient. It's a little bit further down the track. It's a better
buy, especially if you are wanting to have someone like Connor McDonald, or if you like Buderick, or if you want to have a Tim English and Errol Goulden in there. It's a heavy buy round, so I don't mind the shout. I think this one will be a very interesting round 0 watch and could ask a few questions if he puts up a decent score.
Yeah, just put it on the radar, I reckon.
On the radar. Let's move on to the next game, and that was the Brisbane Lions versus the Gold Coast Suns. Speaking of Petrarca, he also had the most CBAs for the Gold Coast Suns. I wanted to ask you, as someone who watched the game, I did not. Yeah. Were these real CBAs or Dustin Martin fake CBAs? Was he in the centre bounces and actually going into the back line when the stoppages moved that way, or was he centre bounces forward? That's sort of my big question, because I think that, especially with this head coach in Dimmer, they can mean two different things.
Yeah, I think in this instance, I think they were real CBAs. Okay. He was more of a genuine midfielder in this one. But we also have to keep in mind that, and I know Matt Rayleigh's out for a somewhat extended period of time as well.
Yeah, he missed at least until their early season bye.
Yeah, but it was also a tough read because Gold Coast were just very, very much outplayed by Brisbane in this game as well. So given that we're picking him because we think that Gold Coast are going to go on this tear to start the season and he's going to have good matchups and stuff, it was probably not the best one to look at. The positive from this is that he obviously was the highest scoring Sun and collected a decent amount of disposals here. So maybe you could make the argument that against a better opposition and when Gold Coast actually play well, that there's another 15, 20 points of upside. He did
play what I would probably estimate is close to a full allotment of time. Like, he played 83% time on ground.
Yeah, I can't see him going up from there. There could also be an argument to say that when they do come up against these better matchups, that there's no reason not to swing him forward a little bit more.
Yeah.
He hasn't been at the Oxongs recently, and not because I'm necessarily kind of replacing him with a like for a like. I'm just going with
restructure, different,
a deeper kind of mid-price structure in the forward line.
I think there's been a few that have put their hand up. I would agree with you there. So I think he's about what we thought he was a month ago. Like, I don't think anything really has changed with him. I agree with you, but I think my confidence in some of the other picks has risen. So therefore, like you, he is not in my side anymore. But if you were to go there, I wouldn't look down on you at all. I want to go to the other end of the spectrum in terms of price. Some rookies. Now, there was no Dan Annable in this one.
Unable to get on the park in this one.
Unable? Say it again.
Unable. Unable to get.
Unable to get.
I'm just recycling my old stuff, mate.
Oh, that's good.
It's easier.
And Zeke Hewland was quiet in this one. Now, I have been a bit skeptical on Zeke Hewland to this point, and this has added fuel to the fire.
We're real skeptics, aren't we?
We're a bunch of skeptics. But as soon as I saw him not being lined up on the wing, and they had my other boy out there, big lad, what's his name?
Well, the fact that Reed wasn't there.
Yeah, Reed, yeah.
The fact that he wasn't there, and the fact that then Lockie Weller and Closey were the starting two wingers.
It was a bit out of left field, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not something that he hasn't played before, but what I was expecting was, okay, even if they're liking Ethan Reed when he's back, well, then the fact that Hewland's not even there when Reed is out, that made me a little bit nervous. Now, to be fair, they seem to be running kind of that three-man rotation through there. Maybe he was just the guy that started on the bench. But that combined with maybe a score that wasn't awesome.
Very hot and cold. Quarter 1, 2 points. Quarter 2, 21 points. Quarter 3, big old donuts, 0 points. And quarter 4, 10. So, I mean, that sometimes can be wingers, but if this was North Melbourne, if this was Essendon or something like that, I wouldn't be as worried. But it's got the Gold Coast Suns. They're a good side.
Yep.
So to me, I don't think they're handing out free rides. And I just a little bit of concern, not only with his scoring, but his job security as well, would be the flag on Zeke Hewland. So a couple of rookies that I think were locked and loaded in our side a few weeks ago have some question marks for me.
Yeah, there's at least question marks from the perspective. I think a lot of people were penciling him in to be an on-field rookie, and now maybe there's some questions there for sure. Round
0 watch, as always. The last one from this game here, Kitty Coleman. Now, I, again, didn't watch this game, but I heard some comments saying that, they were just experimenting and he's actually going to settle down back. So was that the case? Did he play down back? Because his score wasn't super impressive, but...
No, he did play down back. He did.
What the fuck's with these coaches, man? Messing with our heads.
Fags is killing us.
Sam Mitchell and now on our face. What's going on?
Yeah, I still... So he was playing down back, and then the question that I posed to our Patreon audience in the review was, okay, well, let's say that's his role now. He's playing down back.
Right.
Well, I think Jasper Fletcher's done enough to get a consistent game. We know Kitty has. Darcy Wilmot, to me, could even be the pick of those guys. And I suspect that Dane Zorko might also get a game.
He's all right. He's all right, that guy.
Zorko wasn't there on the weekend.
No, true.
If all four... what world can you play all four of those guys as your...
So are you saying he's not on the team?
Who?
Kitty.
No. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if you anticipate that all four of those guys are going to play in the role that you think they are...
Is the scoring going to be there?
Exactly. And then the question is, and I don't know the Brisbane backline off the top of my head, but I just don't think you can play all four of them there and then also have your smaller lockdown defenders plus, of course, your key defenders.
Yeah.
So
he's probably going to play low tog.
Well,
if that is going to be how they line
that's
up.
my question is, like, if he plays in that kind of lineup that I just suggested, well, how many points are available? And then if he plays, but that lineup, there's too many sort of bodies to squeeze in down there, does he play a bit of time forward? Does he? There's too many kind of moving parts that I'm not confident.
And we've also, we're coming from this from people who were probably skeptical from the beginning, where we said he's got the round 2 bye. He's the perfect player to wait and see. After you get the round 0, you get the round 1 as well, and then you can assess in round 3. I don't think there's too much to be gained here by launching in after one game of the opening round.
Yeah, I mean, if
unless he comes out 140, which is always the caveat. But I think it still to me sounds like I would just want to wait and see more information, and then with a bit more confidence you can go in there round 3 if you get that.
Well, mate, before you went downhill, you did get to watch a little bit of footy.
Yes.
And you got to watch our mighty Tigers as well. Are we winning the flag?
If the flag is the number 1 draft pick, we're winning that.
Cooper flag.
Cooper flag, yes. He'd be a good footy player, I reckon. Melbourne versus Richmond, yes. We'll start with Melbourne side because I think the talk of this one... Now, firstly, this game... Very frustrating trying to watch it. It's one of I've been watching them later on and then like fast forwarding them. But this one I sat down, it was on the weekend. I sat down, had the whole day free and I wanted to watch this one live. I was like, I'm going to get the time on ground. I was going to get to see who's on the bench. And of course there's fucking lightning that strikes twice. They literally say that doesn't happen, but it did.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It did happen. So lots of delays and end up calling this game off after, I think, about 7 minutes into the third quarter. So we don't have a full game of sample size to go off this one. But the biggest takeaway or the biggest, highlight from this one was Caleb Windsor. Now, he was electric, especially in that first quarter. Oh. I think the role is real.
Did you mean that?
Yeah, 100%.
No chance.
The role is real. And the scoring was real in this one, but the scoring was not real the week before. What is the real?
Well, the winds are blowing me towards this pick, and I don't know what I'm going to say next.
Nice.
I gotta get better at that.
Windsor is looking good. He's a defender. You forgot that he was a defender. You text me saying, "Hold on, this guy's a defender."
I haven't watched the D's the last 2 weeks. That's been your
my write-up.
Your task. But I said, fuck, get Windsor in there. Get him in there. And I just shuffle those defenders down, mate, because I told you, Hewland, not as confident. Let's shuffle them down one spot and get Windsor in there.
Yeah.
And you were sceptical, but in the brief patch of game that I watched the first quarter, admittedly, he was fucking everywhere.
Electric, as some might say.
But some do say. But I said, what's wrong with this, Mitch? You're overthinking this one. Let's get him in the side.
I might be overthinking it. 100% I could be. I pose the question to you. How does he look when he's not playing North Melbourne or Richmond? Because they're the two teams that Melbourne has versed so far in the preseason.
I think he looks good, mate. I think he looks good because we don't need him to...
That's fair. The question is also compared to other players at his price. And I want to talk about defenders, but I also want to talk about midfielders. Compared to someone like a Harry Ralston, compared to someone like a Xavier Lindsay, who we're going to talk about in a second.
Don't need us, boss.
Why not have them all? Yeah, maybe. And if that's what you want to do, then go for it.
What's the actual thing?
I have no idea. I don't pretend to know.
Let me just brush up.
Dos? Something dos.
Best bisos, test bost.
No, that's not even close. But I still think that he probably... I don't know. I can't see him being more than an 80 guy, personally. He still strikes me as impact over accumulation. The trap is also in this game, because it's a small sample size, like he did start to slow down in the second quarter. If he had a couple more quarters that he went to slow down, you would feel a bit more like, okay, it was just a hot patch of a fourth. But because it's basically half the game he was going crazy in, it seems to carry a bit more weight. But The role's real. I think it's real. I think he's going to be like a top 3 CBA player for them. I just am still skeptical about how he's going to look when the game is tough and Melbourne are getting flogged, because they're not going to be good. Like, they're not. And that's where I have my concerns. I think he's underpriced. The question is, to me, is he underpriced enough?
Watching that first quarter got me excited, mate. And speaking of Cumming, Sam Cumming did his shoulder.
He did, yes. I have no idea what the severity is, but he already had it strapped up. And I don't think we should be expecting him to be there round 1. Just with how Richmond have traditionally handled their rookies and, you know, the experience that they've had with someone like a Gibkiss and like these players that can't seem to get healthy, get re-injured. Yep. It just wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense for them to rush it back in. If they do rush it back in, it would be extremely minor. But it didn't look very good. He was holding it. I think he was holding it. Then the ball came around. He marked it and kicked it back. So the quick ball sort of fixed him up real quick. But yeah, it didn't look great the way he was hobbling off the field. So I would tentatively find a replacement for Sam Cumming as a rookie.
Xavier Lindsay is a guy that both you and I have been reasonably hot on this preseason, but based on his ownership percentage, we are on an island. I mean, I knew we were idiots beforehand, but we might be idiots again here with Lindsay. 1.9% ownership.
1.9.
Stephen May,
confirmed retired,
has pulled the pin. I think Salem gets the main kick-in bump there. Maybe, yes. But nice. I think that if Lindsay gets even a little bit of the splash... Just a little bit. Now, he is someone, if we're talking about your boy Windsor, the Winds of Caleb, they're very similar price. Windsor is 15K more than Xavier Lindsay. Who do you think scores more? So you mentioned the opposition that they played to this point. Mm-hmm. And I would say the easier opposition is going to suit someone like Caleb Windsor.
Yeah.
But there is the potential that when the ball is visiting the backline a little bit more and maybe Melbourne want to slow that game down.
Lindsay.
Enter.
Kick-ins. Yep, chip.
Play his entrance music. Here he comes,
yeah.
It's Lindsay.
I am still thinking that I would prefer Xavier Lindsay than Caleb Windsor. Now, I will say that Melbourne's defense last year put up a lot of points. I don't think they're going to put up as many points this year. I think they're going to be playing less chip around with a new coach. So whether or not that's enough for me to not pick Lindsay, I don't think so, but I just want to put that out there. I just think you've got a guy who looked really, really good in spots last year and is going to be playing what I think is going to be a prime role. I think he and Salem are the two main distributors off half-back there. And whether or not he gets more kick-ins than Salem or less, it doesn't really matter. The fact that he's going to get any, to me, is just a bonus that inflates his floor. He will get DPP. So comparing him to Windsor, I think, is fine, even though he's a midfielder right now. We've got so many DPP defender rook mids that you kind of have to combine those two lines almost in a way. I still really like him. I'm not being put off by the 1.9% ownership. I try to ignore those sort of things. I think that he is definitely someone we should be considering.
45 points on the weekend. Obviously, the game was an abbreviated version, but only the one mark.
Yeah, he'll get more than that.
Yeah, you would hope so.
He'll get more than that. So on track for nearly 90. Like if we call it a half of footy.
Oh, it's a bit more than half.
Yeah. On track for 80. I don't know.
You got your Lindsay coloured glasses on.
Yeah, look, I'm a fan. He's by no means locked into my side. But and maybe I'm making this sway me too much the other way, but 1.9% just seems crazy that it's so low. I think, I don't know, some people are maybe overlooking Xavier Lindsay here as a second-year breakout. I just think his role is perfect. Guess who has round 1? St Kilda.
Oh.
They like to let people chip it around.
This is typically a thing they like to do.
So, yeah, I think there's something to Lindsay as a legit pick.
Okay, now I've been itching to talk about the Bulldogs and Hawthorn, mainly for our pick of the season, or your pick of the season last year, which was Tim English. He came out after Brodie Grundy also did.
Yeah, Brodie didn't give well. We didn't talk about him, but yes, he did.
He came out and said, what new ruck rules? Don't worry about it.
Don't fucking worry about it. Hold my beer. I'm just going to go and put up the best performance of the preseason. He had 125 at 3/4 time. At 3/4 time, Luke, and then he just parks up the bus. I think he scored 6 points in the last quarter. It was incredible. People were saying, like, the commentary saying that was his best game he's ever played, which is, I don't know, it's a practice match, but he is still being used as he always was, like that fourth midfielder. Linking up, he's getting the cheap +6s, he's in the handball chains, he's outrunning the ruckman, and now with these new rules, he's not going to be the number one hit-out ruckman, but I think it only helps him get more hit-outs. His percentage of hit-out wins, I think, is going to go up, whereas a lot of other big dog rucks might go down. And I think he makes those contests a lot more than the other rucks as well, because of his fitness base. This is sometimes where you don't want to react to the score, but he was so good that I think we have to take notice of this.
The other thing to keep in mind here as well is if you were to kind of just look at his matchups in the first little patch of the season on the face of it.
Oh, we talk about Sherry's run, Tim English's run.
Well, and the thing is, I think some of them you look at and go, oh, well, that would typically be a hard matchup. But based on what we know of the preseason, it might actually be the opposite. So, of course, you've got the Brisbane Lions in opening round. We're going to get to see that score anyway. Yep. But an easier matchup than if it was perhaps an experienced kind of... correct. And then Briggs, if it's Briggs against the Giants, that I think Briggs has actually been a reasonably easy matchup.
He kills Briggs, he runs laps around him.
Adelaide, now...
McAndrew.
Well, that's the thing. It is typically Rob. Maybe it's not Rob. McAndrew is very tall, but based on what I've seen of McAndrew, English is going to be fucking running circles around him in terms
by the end of the game,
endurance.
McAndrew will be huffing and puffing.
Correct. And then we go into the round 3 bye. So...
and then he goes, well, keep it going. Essendon, which we know it could be Blackiston, very raw ruckman. Hawthorn, which he just did this against.
Yeah.
What are they called? Geelong. Like, that's a walk-up matchup. He doesn't hit his hard matchup until round 7 against Grundy.
So if you're going to spend up on a ruckman, I see Tim English as being a good option. The argument for Grundy over him is that maybe there's a little bit more upside in Grundy.
A little cheaper,
if Grundy goes on to do what he did at the end of last year. But Tim English, hey.
I probably wrote him off a bit too quickly, and we all knew that he was probably going to be least affected by these rules, but it just... Now that I've seen a little bit more with the preseason matches, and we're going to talk about Tristan Sherry a bit later, he just feels like the safest pick. And based off today, like I wouldn't have an issue putting a VC or a C on him, I don't think, early in the season. He just looked that good. And how he gets his points, I don't think is going to change all that much. So
I know this doesn't mean all that much, but did you see him interviewed after the game?
No. What did he say?
He just seems like a really lovely, soft-spoken kind of guy.
He talks very different to how he looks.
Yeah. But he just seemed really nice. I know that nice doesn't get you fantasy points, but I like nice.
No, good on you, Tim. Good on you, Tim. Where are we up to next? Oh, Connor Buderick.
You're going to skip over the other Connor?
Oh, sorry. I read 2 Connors in here, but we'll go Buderick first.
Okay.
So he put up back-to-back 80s. He had an 80 last week in the match simulation, 81 in this one here. Is the score misleading or is he a legit option?
I haven't watched him, so you got to tell me. 2 weeks in a row, you're the Bulldogs, man.
I still think I am skeptical on this one. His scoring breakdown, it's pretty even in this one compared to last week. It was definitely after the first quarter when things started to free up a little bit. There was no Bailey Dale in this one for the entire game for the last 3 quarters. So he's had 7 quarters essentially without Bailey Dale there, who may or may not be there for round 0. I just think compared to other options in our forward line, we're going to talk about McDonald. There's Rochelle, there's Philippou, there's Flanders, there's Petrarca, there's Green, there's Sheasel, there's all these other options. I think all of those guys have potential to be thereabouts in the top 10 forwards. I really don't see a world where Connor Buderick is anywhere close to those guys.
He is considerably cheaper, so
you're right.
There's an argument to say that you don't need him to be that, but I understand what you mean. If you can pick a guy that's discounted and he's a chance of being a top 10 forward, then...
2 birds, 1 stone.
I do get that. There's always players we missed, and this one reeks of one that we've just kind of maybe turned our nose up at, and obviously
very possible.
He's gone to a new club, looking probably for that opportunity to play in more of that fruitful role. This is just the absolute hack of this year with that many teams playing in the opening round.
Yeah. What would he need to score for you to consider him?
If he's in that role, Bailey Dale's in, and he scores an 85 or a 90, then I'm very much.
I think that's what it would take for me to consider him. If he scores like 75, even though that's still like 30 points above his price stat, I still don't think I'm going there. 80 plus, like he's been doing, I will start to consider it, definitely.
And that being said, it depends what some of the guys around him in
the other thing with him is
score.
like round 3 bye. So we talked about, we liked what Tim English did. Errol, round 3, you've got McDonald, you've got Petrarca. There's a lot of guys on there round 3, so, how many is too many?
All right,
Connor McDonald.
Yeah, wind it back to Connor McDonald. What did you see? I watched him last week. You watched him this week.
Yeah, I'm ticking all the boxes, man. He just looks like a good pick. Now, it looked to me like he was sort of at times swapping between, he had a little bit of a rotation with Nick Watson and him, but to me, he clearly was the better midfielder. And the thing that I took away from it that I don't know if he's going to be like a season-winning knockout pick, but the fact that when he goes forward and plays them forward time, he's not going to be awful.
Yeah,
I think really helps support his floor. I think he is just someone is good at finding the footy. He's good at getting kicking goals, finding the big sticks, and I think that just gives me a level of comfort to go there. So, whilst there was a time where I might have said that he was going to be the highest averaging player for Hawthorn, I still think it's possible. Maybe not as strong on that opinion now, but I think he is. I think he's a safe upside pick. So yeah, ticking all the boxes. If he does this again around 0, I think I'm picking him.
Yeah, 19% ownership surprised me. I thought that might have ticked up a little bit with the hype over the last couple of weeks, but we will see where that ends up.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's go to the next game, St Kilda versus Essendon. This is one of those games where you've got early bye round team versus a round 0 team. So we're basically going to focus on Essendon here. Starting with the big man in the middle, Lockie Blackiston. I was a bit dismissive on this pick the last practice match. I've flipped my script. I think that he's got that number 1 ruck role locked down.
You reckon it's black and white?
I think it's black and white. Nice. We're holding on to that one.
Yep.
And he looks good. He actually runs really well for a big man.
Well, that's good, Mitch. I'm glad that an AFL player runs really well.
He runs really well. He doesn't lope around.
I can't think of many that don't.
No. Wait.
But Rolly O'Brien, maybe.
I was going to say I can think of at least 1, 2, maybe, Sean Darcy. But he moves well. Look, he gave away quite a few free kicks. Bit over-enthusiastic at times, but he'll learn.
Being a little undersized, is that what it contributed to?
Just a bit, a bit antsy. Like, got real cuddly with the hands over. A lot of high free kicks, like in the ruck competition.
In the wrestle.
Yeah, in the wrestle. So I think he'll settle down, but I think you kind of just have to pick him and just cross your fingers that he's there for enough time that Nick Bryan doesn't come back and spoil the party. But he's probably going to generate a lot of cash, even in a short window.
Yeah, that number 1, when you step into that number 1 rock role, even for 3 or 4 weeks, it can be lucrative.
Yeah, he looked really good. The next guy here, I have a lot of question marks about still, because he was awesome. Archie Roberts. And I've had a few questions about him, and to this point, I've always gone, nah, you can't go there. He's too expensive. But he was everywhere. And he was the guy that, especially through 3 quarters, the commentators just kept saying, and here goes Roberts, and here goes Roberts. Roberts with the mark, Roberts with the kick. Absolutely everywhere. He had a 50-point second quarter, getting the ball in the midfield, getting the ball off halfback. And I tell you what, if nothing else, this man has thirst. He has genuine thirst for the footy. It's Errol Gordon-like, the thirst. Now, I'm not saying the skills or the talent is Errol Gordon-like, but he looks for the footy, and I'll tell you that much. The issue I have is for us to pick him, he's priced at 86.
Be a top 6 defender.
He needs to be a premium defender. Maybe not top 6, but like close. He's got to be high 90s to be worth the pick.
I think even higher. I mean, to be a top 6 defender, you almost have to be
100.
averaging. Yeah,
but I don't think he has to be that to be a decent pick. But if he has to be more than 95 at a minimum, that's a big ask. It doesn't there's not many guys that can do that.
Yeah,
let alone genuine midfielders. So, and there's also the question mark of there's a lot of other players in the Essendon lineup that we expect to go well as well.
And across halfback as well, I know.
I think at the very least, he's in there. I think he's in there at least a decent chunk. So my thing for him is, I still don't know if he's an option. I think there's other options I like better. but I start to get a little concerned about players like Parrish, players like Merritt.
So was Roberts doing a little bit of everywhere on the weekend, was he?
He was mid-halfback, mid predominantly. I think he was inside midfield for the most part. His CBAs were pretty high from memory. But even when he was playing midfield, he was getting back for those cheap +6s in the back line.
So where does this leave us on Caldwell even? Like, this is not a name that I was fully expecting.
Caldwell, he chugged along. He never got out of second gear. And to me, he was the number one guy in the midfield.
Is it stocks down for a Zach Merritt then, who only had 10 CBAs to Roberts?
Well, Merritt, he's not on the run sheet, but Merritt, yes. He rested forward. And I'm not talking rested half forward. He rested deep forward several times.
You try to leave us and you go into the depths of the
I don't know. I don't know if it was they were just resting him and having a look at other things, but it's enough for me to be concerned and not want to start him. There's too many flags there. I also think Durham, he might have moved out of the top 4 in the rotation.
Oh God, this is confusing me.
So I think you got Caldwell number 1, and then there's like a 3-way tie for number 2 between Parrish, Roberts, and whatever the fuck Merritt's doing. I don't know what he's doing.
That to me, I didn't watch this one, but just talking to you here has provided more questions than answers.
Yeah, but a lot of people have asked me about him, and I've been like, no, I don't think I can talk anyone out of it now. Personally, I still don't see myself going there, but he looked fucking good. Couldn't have done more, really, I don't think.
Okay, who else did you like from this game?
Well, the one I didn't like, who we seemed to like last week, Jacob Farrow. He didn't play in the second half. So he played in the first half and then sat on the bench. I think this is troubling signs for his job security at the very least. His scoring ability. So he had 29 points in the first... Oh, sorry. He didn't sit after halftime. He did play a little bit in the third quarter, but very limited and had 4 disposals in that time. So what did he have? 21 points at halftime. It's a little concerning for me. We've all sort of just locked him in there. It looks great, but just another rookie where job security, scoring potential. I don't want him on field. That's for sure.
He's departed the Oxlongs, mate.
He has?
He's departed. Well, as I said...
He's still on my bench, but...
Nah, mate, you're a loser. The cascading effect of the big Windsor just pushing in is just...
Right.
See you later.
Fair enough.
See you later, Farrow. So, mate, well, I mean, this is the... I was going to say it's the Hilux winning team, but it is... It's
not the Hilux anymore.
It's the Tundra.
Mate.
The Tundra winning team.
187K.
Bro, I'm going to need to widen my garage.
Oh, my God.
That thing looks fucking huge. Let's have a look at it, should we?
Yeah, I did do a quick Google when I saw the prize. And remember we were talking about it last week?
Didn't they say the car's worth like $300,000 or something?
$187,000.
You cannot tell me that a vehicle can be worth that much when it's not some sort of Lamborghini or something.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Jesus. Hey, well, hold on. Let's be nice to Toyota if they're going to give us the car. let's not go poo-poo in their car.
I think my house might be worth less than this car. So
I hope not.
I might start living
Otherwise our value's gone down.
Living in my new Tundra.
But what was I saying? Yeah, there's a few rookie concerns, especially in that backline. Like we had Euland. We had now Farrow, Annabelle.
I've got the answer here, mate.
You got the answer there. Windsor.
Have a look at
Windsor in the defence. Maybe.
I mean, win is in the name. And that's what I plan to do.
Win is also in the name of Unwin. Are you going to start him?
Ryan.
Ryan Unwin?
Big Ryan. He's just there for morale. You can afford to ditch a utility spot and pop in Unwin.
I drafted him the other day in a keeper league.
No, you didn't.
I did. But I'm tanking this year because I've got Will Day, I've got Matty Rowell, I've got Nick Martin, I've got Tom Green. So I thought,
hey,
bit of culture.
Yeah, nice.
Bit of morale. Let's get Unwin in.
Just make sure everyone knows exactly what you plan to do.
It's the direction, you know.
Yeah. We're going to
have unity as a squad. But let's move on to the next game here, and that is Fremantle versus Adelaide. And another forward putting their hand up, Murphy Reid. Again, a player that's been asked about a fair bit. To this point, I've sort of said no, can't really see it. He put his hand up, 100 on the weekend. A lot of CBAs, and I think Sarong and Brayshaw really ticked the legs over and didn't try too hard on this one. But, you watched this one as well. I watched the first quarter and then got violently ill after seeing Adelaide's midfield.
Yeah, we won't go into that too much. Don't disclose. The fact of it is, it wasn't really lots of CBAs.
No? Okay.
And this is the thing. The role that he was playing was that high half forward role. But let me hash this out a little bit, because normally when we talk about the high half forward role, I think he had 6 or 7. Is that right?
7, yeah. Oh, you did the whole...
but that was unintentional. It's always unintentional. I hate that shit. So let me talk through it. So he played that high half forward role, which typically we would kind of go, don't particularly like it. And there's still that flag there, but it seemed as though they just said to him, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Cool.
They basically just said to him, like,
30 touches.
He wasn't going up as the high half forward typically does to stand at the front of the stoppage and prevent like a feedback to an opposition winger. He was just kind of going up there to do what he wanted and
like genuine midfield sort of
yeah,
spot.
and in a way kind of like use his nous and fitness to kind of beat his opponent back into the forward line where required.
How big is his nous?
Big nous. I was in the change rooms after the game and I had a good look at his nous. He's a little fella, but he's got a big nous.
Oh, I don't know why that got me so much.
Have you heard the word nous before?
Yeah, I have, but it just seemed strange when he said it. Okay. Using his nous.
Yeah.
Weird context. Anyway.
Oh, I thought it was the exact right context.
Anyway, so is he a real option?
Well.
Because he's at like Sam Lawler prices, isn't he?
Okay. He is cheap. Look, we tend to err on the side of conservative.
Yeah. We're basic, boring bitches, man. Fuck.
Well, when you got 10 teams on opening round, why would you make any big proclamations?
Yeah, true.
We're not clickbait here, mate. There are options around his price, and if I ask myself, okay, like for example, like a Rochelle, that seems to be the more genuine kind of typical fantasy role going into the midfield there.
Mm-hmm.
Reed seems to be a little bit more kind of agricultural, and
you got Philippou there. He's just a little bit more.
You know how much I love him. So this is what I'm going to say on him is if you liked what you saw from Murphy Reed and you expect it to continue and you're big on Murphy Reed.
I think in terms of options, I think he's moved ahead of Lawler for me.
Yep.
On a draft day, I'd probably draft him ahead of Lawler. I don't think it's enough for Classic for me personally. But he's definitely a guy that if he continues this early into the season, he's a decent trade over.
Yeah, can get on board as well.
Yeah, so I think he's definitely, if you don't start on him, it's not like, all right, I don't have to think about Murphy Reed ever again.
Yeah.
Definitely keep an eye on him, especially if there's an injury or something like that. The other thing which we don't really get to see in these ones is the freer game style. So but he was the second highest scorer for them.
Yeah, that role can, I think, sometimes be influenced by the game script. But the fact that he's a great player, great user, like if I'm Fremantle, of course I want to get the ball in Murphy Reed's hands.
He looks like a good player.
Also gives us a bit of ammo there if you like him.
Rochelle, you just mentioned him, but now I will say, looking at the team that Adelaide rolled up, there was so many players missing. They were missing Berry, Peatling, Rankin, Saligo. There's 4 players that last year got centre bounces, okay? So there's only so much we can read out of this one. However, based on what we got, Josh Rochelle is making the most of his chances. He's ticking boxes.
So much hype too, so much talk, and not just outside hype, inside hype as well. I'm not the coach of Adelaide, but if I were, do I want Peatling or Rochelle in there? I have enough players that do what Peatling does. I don't have as many players,
I agree.
Maybe aside from Rankin, that will do what Rochelle will provide in there.
Yep.
So,
and if you think about those other guys, if they've all had quote-unquote interrupted preseason, he's going to be... Him and Dawson are basically the 2 guys that have been there the whole start of the year. So he probably will be relied on more, especially early, if he's got the legs underneath him.
Yeah. Look, at the moment he's at the Oxlongs, but this one to me is a little bit of a coin toss. But if we're talking about like a guy like Murphy Reed and Rochelle, which narrative do you buy?
We've also seen runs on the board for Rochelle as well, where he's had, I think, a 7-game stretch in 2023 where he averaged 90 plus. And if he were to do that at his price point, would be basically he's a top 6 forward, and that would be a smash pick. So really, really happy with that one. Last but certainly not least, our big man, Lockie McAndrew. He scored 81. He did it in 69% time on ground.
Points per minute beast.
Your thoughts?
The thing that I really got behind again this week was the fact that he tackled.
6 tackles.
I love that. And when you look at him and you watch him lumber out and take the first ruck contest...
He looks a bit like a baby giraffe.
You don't think this guy's going to be able to get lateral and maybe lay a few tackles, but he does. He gets in there and he lays tackles. And, I mean, this is what you mentioned. We're going to talk about Tristan Sherry later. this is what I was expecting to see from Tristan Sherry.
Now, I imagine, let's pump the brakes a little bit. I think McAndrew's playing a little bit harder.
All gas, no brakes.
All gas, no brakes.
Get your foot away from my brakes.
Okay, but
you stay on that side of the car. I'm going to work it over here, mate.
First question, has he done enough this preseason for you to think that he's going to be there round 1 as the solo ruck?
No, Rob. Yes. Does that mean that he will just because I think it?
Well, yes, that's what I'm asking you for.
Yes, all gas.
Okay, all gas. Okay. 2,
But I'm not coaching the Crows.
does the time on ground concern you a little bit?
No, but he's a fucking rookie. No, if he can score 81...
Was he 25?
Rookie priced.
Right, yeah.
So-
but the time on ground, I'm more saying that from the fact that, is he going to last more than a couple of rounds before he's just fucking buggered?
For his cactus.
I have a little flag on his fitness.
Don't tell me roles are reversed and I'm pumping
No,
up
I'm still on him. I'm just playing a little devil's advocate here, but is that 69% like what he's going to play in round 1, or is that like it's a preseason game, we're just going to roll him out there to
he's getting the chop. He's getting the chop out from Big Murray as well.
Murray.
So
why is Toby Murray being the chop out and not Rob? Why?
Well, Toby Murray,
He's playing 53% tog. Why can't Rob do that?
Well, I think he offers a little bit more than old Rob.
So fair.
When he's
Sorry, Rob.
when he's not playing in the ruck,
Yes.
and maybe a little bit more spring in the step and versatility than the old Rob has.
Aesthetics.
And so, I guess if you're Adelaide, you're asking the question: okay, well, we've got this young fella who's training the house down, who's going to win his fair share of hitouts, but just because he's enormous,
Yes.
who's also willing to do things that Rob did as well, tackle, do the hard things, all these little things.
Yep.
And you can play him with your 70% game time and you can get your little chop out from Murray, but you've got a bit more versatility around the ground. That's where my head's at. I wonder if that's where Adelaide's head's at.
Okay, so the last question, R2 or R3?
R3.
All right. I'm still R2, but
People...
there is risks.
There are going to be so many stiffies out there about the way people's teams look at the moment. Everyone's going to be loving their teams.
Oh, my team is just
correct.
lit.
Yourself included. And I just want to put it on the table that there's a big scenario where people have to pare back some of those guns in their team at the moment if this thing doesn't come to fruition.
Yes. The thing is, for me, if Rob's not there in round 1, McAndrew's R2 for me. Based on everything we've seen, I don't trust many of the other rucks, so I might as well pay minimal for them. So that's sort of my logic there. Let's move on to the Sunday games. North Melbourne versus Collingwood. And a name which I had to look this up. But Tom Blamires.
Mate, he and Dirk and I go way back.
Out of nowhere.
Off the top rope.
92 points. He was an SSP signing from, I want to say, a few days earlier. Am I right saying that?
It was this week. And he was an employee at Collingwood. Did you see that as as well?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not in the footy department, but in the, I think it was like
I was going to say, what was he there? Their water boy or something?
Oh, whoa, cop that.
Employee. So you said that. So anyway.
Well, mate, footy clubs have employees.
Yeah, okay.
Businesses. Get your head out of your ass.
92 points. Played off half back.
Yep.
Is he there just because Colby's not there in this one? And even if he was, like, is he in there?
Well, Colby, I think, is a good point that you bring up. The other point is
23 years old.
Guess where Luke Parker played the whole game?
On a wing or forward? He wasn't.
Half back.
Yeah, half back? Okay.
So that to me is all sorts of
doing
weird.
some weird shit with Simpkin.
The thing I wrote in the review as well is from what I saw of Blamires, potato. You probably shouldn't say that about someone's name. Sorry,
Sorry, Tom.
Sorry.
He finally gets his break, mate, and we're calling him potato.
Hey, I don't think he listens to us.
No, probably not.
The thing that I like about it, but I just don't know whether North Melbourne will go down this road, is I think he offered more than fucking Caleb Daniel has in the last 2 years. So I'd be having
This was my thoughts too.
I'd be having a hard conversation going, hey, we got to give someone else a chance because Caleb Daniel's out there in a pracky match missing 15-metre kicks.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
Like
that inside 51,
and I'm not saying that Blamires was without blemish, but Where
are we going?
I never know where I'm going.
But yeah, I think
give it to the young fella.
He's a 230k midfielder. If he's there in round 1, I think we have to pick him because it's a role that's juicy as hell.
So
it's
juicy.
North Melbourne. Like, if he's going to have job security anywhere, it's here.
He's mid-only, bud, isn't he?
He's mid-only. He also, from what I saw in research, he won, I can't remember the name of the award, but there's basically an award for...
An award?
An award for
child
VFL or Scoobies players that basically every single player who wins that award the next year is signed. Pretty much it's been consistent for the last 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
So he's going... I think he's going to get opportunities. And we can't turn our nose up at these SSP signings. Nick Martin was an SSP.
Early season Todd McCarthy.
Todd McCarthy, like he was a mid-season draft. So these guys that come out of nowhere, just because we haven't had them on our radar or they haven't been on a list, doesn't mean they can't be fantasy gold. So I think if he is there round 1, I think he's a genuine option, and especially if he has that role, because that is fantasy gold right there.
Oh, it was. Yeah, he looked to be getting involved too.
So I think he might be a cash cow saviour potentially with some of these other rookies, putting their hand down. Okay, let's have the conversation about Tristan Sherry.
Let's do it.
You had this game, you watched this game. I also watched Sherry last week. I had some mild concerns last week when Max Heath was beating him in the centre bounces or centre ball ups. How did he look in this one? Looking at his stat line, not super impressed, but we do know that Tristan Sherry doesn't always come out in pre-season and dominate, but what are our thoughts? Should we be concerned?
This was the face I was pulling when I was watching the game.
For anyone listening, it's slightly constipated kind of a look.
It's a bit of a grimace. It's a bit of a eyebrows raised, teeth clenched.
Yeah.
What the fuck am I watching here? This is not Tristan Sherry.
Yeah.
Now, he has a little bit of a history of doing this in the
does,
preseason.
yes.
And then when it comes to the real stuff, he pulls his finger out
I
a
think the
little
year
bit.
he went nuts, he put up a 60-something in the preseason and then obviously went on to average 115.
So I was having a look at sort of hit-out numbers in this game. So there was 70-odd hit-outs in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Guess how many ruck contests North Melbourne averaged last year?
I think they were the highest.
They were indeed the highest.
Yeah.
104, I think it was.
Okay, yeah.
So we're talking about that's a massive percentage difference between what we saw on the weekend and what we saw last year.
Yeah.
Now this is the trouble.
Like
What narrative
difference.
do you build around this? Do you talk about new rules and cite that as the reason,
Or pre-season.
or do you just talk about pre-season and then when we get back into the real stuff? I can't imagine that the new rules are going to create a drop of 30-odd ruck contests.
No, I don't think so either.
But what we saw from him was still concerning. It didn't, to me, appear as though he was willing to get after the body in the contests in terms of those tackles that we know. I think he had one tackle. Let me check.
Tackle, yeah.
He had one tackle for the game.
The thing that, a couple things that I don't think it's one thing that's it's a few little things all adding up. So it looks to me like he, and you tell me if you disagree with this or not, it looks to me like he's still trying to figure it out. Like he's trying to test what he can and can't do. He's trying to test what the rules let him do. He's trying to test what's going to be the most effective approach for him so far.
But you saw what Grundy and Tim English did.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think they've worked it out, or at least English has, because he's been doing it the whole time.
Why is he's an AFL listed player? Why has he not worked it out to this point in the preseason?
Well, because Sherry's strengths lie in different areas. Because he's that guy, he's that
fair.
brute. So he's trying to still get the most out of his strengths, but adapting where he needs to. And I think he's still trying to figure that out. Number 2, not only is as the centre bounce especially, because I think he still bullies people around the ground in terms of the throw-ins and that. I saw him several times getting it out of the ruck, kicking the ball. Great, love that. But the centre bounces, and I think this was made note of a few times in some of the games, fewer follow-up stoppages. A lot of the times that the hit-outs have been going wider and more to the outside to the midfield's benefit rather than Tristan Sherry's lovely little tap-down follow-up tackle. So even though, say we don't worry about his loss in hit-outs from that rule, I think the loss of potentially a tackle or so might be a result of the way those centre bounce ruck rules are happening.
Yeah, and I think you could go and say, okay, well, there's only X amount of centre bounces per game, but then
We are talking about X, yes.
Yeah, nice. Like you then note, well, if we're losing his ability to get a secondary tackle from that first centre bounce, then the secondary stoppage is also an opportunity for him to get a tackle.
Yeah, it's sort of multiplies for him, yeah.
It kind of feels that way too. So I didn't like what I saw, and the fact of it is, we don't get a free look here. I don't think he's done enough for me to start him.
I don't love being reactionary to this sort of a stuff. However, he has actually come out of my side.
Hit out. Just looking at the hit out numbers over the course of the weekend for a few of the games. I'm not doing the exact math here, but we're not. The lowest averaging ruck contest team was about 90. Highest was just over 100. None of these games are really hitting anywhere near that, and so
it's a preseason. I mean, there's fewer ruck contests in preseason. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah,
there definitely won't be many hit outs in that game because it was only 3 and a bit quarters.
Yeah.
Look, if Tristan Sherry comes out and dominates this year, I won't say I'm surprised. And there's a very real scenario where we are overreacting, but I am a little concerned about Tristan Sherry. And we always knew that he was the type of ruckman, but I think just seeing it in action, I think it might take him a little bit to get used to this. Now, he's got an excellent fixture in his first 2 months of the season. Can that, gloss over everything? It very well could. But I think that I'm starting to get a bit of a distance, a bit of a gap between the rest of the top 4 and Tristan Sherry. I think Max, Grundy, and Tim are at least a decent enough chunk above Tristan Sherry that he's kind of in a tier of his own now as the clear 4th ruck in my projections.
I think it's a fair point. Let's move on and talk about a North Melbourne midfielder that you have deemed LDULOCK.
Is he a lock?
Well,
LDULOK.
Why did you think? Well, you just wanted it to be 3?
Yeah, 3.
Oh, okay. LDULOK.
LDULOK.
Yeah,
What?
right. No.
He was good, but...
Why'd you write this down?
Because he scored 124, and I don't know, he is someone that I have wanted to put in my side, non-early buy player. And why can't LDU average 100 for the season?
It's good because you do always preach that is score over change and roll. That is the thing you always preach. So
you're right.
You've identified that well. He had a big score.
Do you know what? Who was the highest CBA player for North Melbourne?
So he has the same role,
it
but
was
when he's
LDU.
always had. Who would have thought?
I know.
They beat Collingwood, bro. Collingwood trotted out a VFL side.
Yeah, Collingwood's quaffle team.
You expected to, quaffle.
Yeah, it's not even VFL. It's the level below.
And in another state.
Yeah, it's a different state. They've actually flown people down. I'm surprised you didn't get called up. I don't know. It was something to put on down this one here. I could have wrote that Lockie Doverson. I think he's there, round 1.
Yeah, I think he is. And even though he plays that high half forward role, he did a lot to like.
I think we take what we can get
for sure.
The forward rookies. But yeah, LDU, I don't know.
Grow up.
You could sell me into it. Grow up. All right, last game, West Coast Eagles versus Port Adelaide. Now, there was some times where in the preseason I was feeling some dead air and just saying things to pad out some of the podcasts. And I challenged if Rosie and Zach Butters deserve to be in our fantasy sides. The answer obviously is yes.
I had a quarter time in this game. I text Mitch and I said, you still got any concerns over whether they'll beat up on an easy match? This had anyone who watched this game will know, but this had the feeling that Josh Carr in the change rooms before the game said, by the way, boys, this isn't a fucking practice match. Go out and murder these guys. If you have a look at the first centre bounce, Zach Butters comes, I think it's from left to screen, and fucking flies through the centre like some sort of wrecking ball. Your premium midfielders just with reckless abandon, and it didn't stop. They went after it physically.
Can I read you Zach Butters' stat line?
Oh, please.
36 touches, 9 marks, 6 tackles, 2 goals. Do you want to know how much time on ground he played?
68.
67% hog for 152 points per fucking minute. Holy shit. That's 180 territory. That's enormous.
Okay, take the scores out of it because I know you don't like doing that. Okay. But take the scores out of it.
It's a friendly reminder to say these boys are on.
Correct.
And it's he's not going to verse West Coast every week. He will for the first 4, essentially. He's got West Coast, North, Richmond, Melbourne, I think, as well. I think the first 4, he will.
They showed the intent that I think that they're going to play with this. This is Butters and Rosie. Yeah. And the other thing, too, is a new coach here as well. There's no coming out and just kind of trotting through the first 5 weeks of the season. This for me is we come out and we make it known we're here, ready to go. And Butters did that. I mean, Butters did that in the Origin game the other week, and then he bought that.
He almost doesn't know how to. Like, that's the kind of player and person he is. Quickly on these two, especially Rosie.
Yes.
High CBAs of the game.
Well, this is why...
Against why we're picking him, in a way.
This is why, and in the Patreon article, again, get over to Patreon if you're not with us yet, but I didn't write stocks up. I wrote green, ticking boxes, because it's not often you score 149 or whatever it was and you don't get stocks up. Yeah. But why I think if I look at it, I think, okay, Bergman's not playing. Yeah. Bergman, we're expecting to be in the centre. We send Rosie to half-back.
They had a guy called Jack Watkins.
Yeah, I wrote about Jack Watkins as well.
In the centre bounces as well.
Not expecting a start, but he didn't do himself any harm either. No. But it just was enough for me to go like, well, hang on, we like the half-back role more. But then the weekend made me think, does it even fucking matter for the first 5 games of the season? The
other thing is there's no Ollie Wines now. Again, he won't be there rounds 1 and 2. But so you've got a few players to come in. So maybe for the first couple of... and honestly, for the first few rounds, midfield for the fixture is better than Rosie. So it could even be like a blessing for us that he plays midfield for the easy matchups, and then for the harder matchup, he goes back in defence and has all the ball down back. So that could actually work out amazing for us. But a little just... If the reason we're picking him is because he scored an average better as a halfback, well, he didn't play halfback in this role, so just a slight little flag there. But again, it's hard to say no when you score 149. I think Josh Lindsay looks really good.
Yeah.
And I think he has a potential... Yeah, you did. And I don't listen to you on this podcast, as you should be well aware by now. I think he looks as good enough that I think he's an on-field option.
Yeah.
I guess maybe some questions people would have would be, would you field him or Grill on field? Which one would you choose?
Oh, and you're probably not going to be able to do any looping in the early part of the season. I'm going to field him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that there's less experienced options down back. And as a result, I think he's likely to get more pill. I kind of think, okay, if Grill, I think is going to get pill, but then, Shorty's going to try and get some footy there. Brody will be down there at stages.
Yeah.
So I'd probably go Lindsay.
To give a Richmond analogy, I think Grill is the Rioli. I think Lindsay's the Jaden Short. I think he collects more the +6s, the cheap ball, whereas Grill is like the run and carry guy. Highlights, but maybe not as fantasy friendly.
Yeah.
Would be the way I would read into that.
Good analogy, I think.
And selfishly, because I'm considering him for my side, I want to talk about Tom McCarthy. Now, he was looking great. And I'm scrolling through the stats here, and I'm saying, okay, well, he scores 76. That's not too great. When I watched the first half, he was looking really good. 50-odd at halftime. And then three-quarter time, 2 points, had 1 handball.
In
the fuck happened, Luke?
Yeah, somebody with a better eye than me will have to hit us up in the comments. But there was a portion of this game where he copped the little AFL injury tag. I don't know whether he copped a knock and went off during that third quarter, because I was certainly looking at it then. And then when I saw that in the fourth quarter, I was watching the game on delay, but I saw that in the fourth quarter, he's back out there doing his thing for mid-20s points. Okay, well, obviously nothing to be seen here. It wouldn't concern me based on what I was watching. I was watching a guy who seems to be quite clearly, in that role, and then showing an ability to do all of the things that role requires, including the tough stuff like tackling and whatnot. So I like the way he looked.
Yeah, and something you've probably not heard from this podcast before. I think he can tackle pretty good. I think that's something that's going under the radar about him that no one's picked up on yet. But he is someone that I'm considering. Who would you rather, him or someone like a Roberts? Because they are priced quite similarly, both without the early buy.
I'm going to take him. I think there's just less question marks about the role at this stage.
Yes, I agreed so as well. He's probably going to be the number 1 scorer at West Coast, which honestly might not be saying much. However, at some point, Luke, they're going to have to put up a player that improves. You know what I mean? Like Richmond had Nankin, Taranto, average in the 90s.
We'll see.
Even bad teams have to have at least someone. So I think that he's a good option. He's still someone that makes me a little nervous, but I think there's a bit of meat on the bone.
That last game of the round was a fantasy relevant game as well. Obviously, if you want our full thoughts on all those players, especially some of the cheaper West Coast guys, head on over to the Patreon or go back and have a look at the game yourself. It certainly can't hurt either.
Yes, and we're going to have one more podcast before we're back into our usual run of things where we're going to be talking about opening round, doing a review. We're going to be back to our live show next week, Luke. Looking forward to that. And the last podcast we're going to do is going to be a cash cows. Who are the must-have cash cows? Who are the guys that maybe are a tier below? And who are the guys that we still have to question marks on? So stay tuned for that one over the coming days. And if you are on YouTube, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And until next time, guys, happy building your teams, and we'll see you guys in the next podcast. Bye.